Hello, my name is Dorothy Hemmings and I'm a member of the Harwich Historical Society. One of the goals of the Society this year, by the way this is the summer of 2010, is to compile an oral history of Charles Drew Cahoon. We knew him in Harwich as Charlie D. He was our famous Harwich artist.
When I was growing up, I really wasn't aware of my parents' friends until my early teens, which is when I first knew him as a person. He was really short, thin, and quiet, but he had a wonderful smile, and I remember him first from those days. But my mother would take him and his supplies in the morning to a place where he wanted to paint for the day and leave him there with his supplies. Many, many years later, long after his death, she said to me once, "I wonder how he ever got home." She said, "He never asked me and I never thought about it."
Yeah. Well, tell us some of the remembrances of Mr. Cahoon.
Well, I remember him as being sort of a dapper, very pleasant, very polite gentleman. And he would come to Sunday dinner at Miss Underwood's where I lived. And I remember him for one thing, because at the dinner table we had roast chicken, and we talked about having the breast of the chicken, and he told a slightly shady joke about breast. And do you think I can remember it? No. And I try to think, but I will never remember it now. But I remember I was not horrified, but I was a little surprised that this dapper, white-haired gentleman would tell a joke in mixed company on a Sunday dinner, at a Sunday dinner.
Oh, that's funny.
So he would, and I don't think that he owned a car.
No, that's what
I can't prove that, but because of a story that I heard from, I think it was Alan Hunt told me, it could be Alan. At the time, Judge Gresham Hall, he was a district court judge, and he sat at the Harwich court, which was the lower, which at that time was in the lower floor of what is now Brooks Library.
The library, yes.
The library was upstairs.
Yes.
Remember that flight of stairs?
I do remember going up those stairs, yes.
And then he also sat at the district court in Provincetown. So he had an arrangement with Charlie D, that if he was going to Provincetown, Charlie would go along with him.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And he would drop him off in Eastham or Wellfleet or any place and pick him up on the way back. And that's the way he was able to get around and do some of the paintings outside of Harwich. Also, I think that he during the Depression, some of the people who owned his paintings acquired them by the barter system, and which was common in those days. Well, I won't say common, but it happened. And lots of people own these little paintings that I've seen them all over town. And each one is a gem, really.
I was living on Forest Street, and I was a paper boy.
Ah, you were his paper boy.
I peddled the Cape Cod Times.
Yeah, that is wonderful. So did you visit with him every morning, so to speak?
I would,
or?
every day I'd have to stop
day?
at the house and drop us his newspaper.
Yeah.
He was a very frail man, but he was very gentleman. He really was a nice person. And in the wintertime, he would call me in, say, have a cup of tea. He'd make a cup of tea, and I looked at his kitchen cabinets, and he was very, very slim pickings there. And he used to paint in the living room.
Yes.
And where it was warm, we had this wood stove. And,
Yeah.
I would sit there for a few minutes and warm up and watch him paint.
So Mr. Cahoon lived across the street.
Yeah, like I say, 3 houses up, and how I got to doing, even getting to know this man at my age, was I would do errands for the neighbors across the street. So there were 3 in a row. Emily Robbins of the Robbins family, John Erickson, they called him Captain John Erickson. He was an elderly man, and C.D. Cahoon. And what I would do for them is, like Emily Robbins, I would go over, she'd call up and say to my mother, would you send Alan over? And this is before school in the morning.
And you were 7, 8, 9, 10 years old at this time?
At the time. Actually, I was 8, 9, 10.
Yeah. So there was a telephone. She called.
There was a telephone, 605 was our phone number. So when I went over, the first time I went over is I had to take out a bucket of ashes because the house, all the houses were heated with stoves, you know. So they either they had a combination of wood, coal, you know, and so everything leads to another story.
That's fine.
That
Keep
time.
going.
But anyways,
It's wonderful.
And my connection with him is tales from my dad's store up in the Exchange Building.
Yes.
And those tales came to me around the dining room table more than anything else. Tales as, you know, he really wasn't very wealthy. Instead of using canvas for his paintings, for example, he used wallboard, gypsum, to use for his paintings. And not being a particularly wealthy person, he paid for some of his bills by giving paintings. And also, as an aside, I asked my sister Pat about this conversation we're having, and she said she could remember the fact that he had a studio on Bank Street, right up where Iris McKinney lives right now, in that little barn that's up there. And of course, at that time, there was a house that had burned down there, so I'm not sure whether the house was there when he used the barn or not, but of course Iris' house is there now, and that was built in the early 50s to replace the one that burned down. So those are my real facts about Mr. Cahoon.
Well, my father knew him, and I was trying to think back. I think I was only 4 years old.
Yeah, you
So
had to have been very little.
Yeah, because I can only remember, the only remembrance that really I could think of, he was doing a painting of a little girl, and he asked if I could come over to his house and put my hands in a certain way so he could paint my hands. And that's about the only memory that, you know, the real memory that I have of him. Except he was very nice, very quiet.
Did your father discuss him very much in the family, in the home? Do you have any reminiscences of him being talked about at home?
I think he said we were some distant relatives.
Oh, really?
I think that's what he said.
Yeah.